Here we have Druminator from Audio Assault, a metalcore, metal-based drum kit. Let's take an in-depth look at it. All right, here we have Druminator from Audio Assault. As I mentioned, this is a drum kit made for metal. So let's start here on the drum kit page. We can click our drums to hear them. I should probably turn this to our natural kit one as we're going through this. The mixer, let me turn this up a bit. Plenty of cymbals. Okay, so we have these little triangles. What do they do? What they change our drum. Kick 2, back to kick 1. Same for our snare here. Pork pie or Black Beauty. I really like the Black Beauty. It's a great metal snare. That's pretty much your drum kit page, but what are these two things here? Well, these are your triggers. You know, sometimes whenever you record a drum kit, you might have a trigger connected to the kick, the snare, sometimes the toms as well. What that can do is it lets you record a MIDI note or a trigger from a drum brain or something, and you can layer that sound with, with your other drum, or you can do it manually, or you can do it with programs like Drumagog and Slate Trigger or whatnot. But we have that built in right here, where we can layer our sounds with our kick and our snare. So just click the triangle, and right now it's on kick. So we're layering these sounds together. If I go to Metalcore 2, which is a great one, come to our mixer, put the kick trigger on solo, just so you're hearing the trigger. Change that to huge. Right, back to mixer, and just solo the kick. That's just the kick. Put this back on Metalcore 2, again, just the kick, and then turn our kick trigger back on. So we get that nice layered sound. Same thing for our snare. We have triggers for that too. A lot of different sounds you can get. So that is our drum kit page. Let's move on to our mixer page. So we have basic level control of those direct channels. Of everything from our snare and our kick all the way down to our snare trigger and kick trigger. All right, and of course the master channel, we can adjust that as well. Then we have pan controls and overhead direct. So to really hear this, let me go down here. We'll solo the snare. Pan it, of course. I'll alt click to put that back in the middle. Then we have the overhead direct, so we can actually pull this in to this channel. Same for the room direct. Okay. Same thing for our kick here. We have the same exact controls. Get that overhead direct sound in there, or the room direct. So here we can adjust the snare amount, the kick amount, the tom amount within this channel. So if I just solo just the overheads, I can pull some of the snare out, or all of the snare out, pull the kick out, pull the toms out. Now we really just have cymbals now, which may be something you want. You may want that really direct kick and really direct snare sound, which is popular for metal, and not much bleed into your overhead or your room. All right, so you have that option as well. I like some bleed because it sounds more natural, especially with toms. Okay, and of course a width control. Then we have our ride hat control here. So right now we have hats playing. turn those up, pan them off. You usually want your hats panned somewhere, either slightly right or left, depends on what you like. Then your ride, same control, and the ride pan. I don't have a ride playing here, but it does the same thing. Onto the room mics. So just like we did with our overheads, pull that snare out, kick out, tom out if you want, cymbal them out. Go down here. Snare in, kick into this channel, toms in this channel. And a width control. Onto our tom channel, so basic panning. We just pan these around a bit, just like you're going around the kit. And that same overhead direct and room direct controls that we have. But actually want my toms more in the overheads and probably more in the room. I like loud toms personally. All right, but those are your controls and how you use them. Onto the trigger. These are exactly the same in how they're set up. So we're just hearing just the trigger right now. I can pan just the trigger, which is kind of cool. A cool effect if you want to say pan the kick one way and then or pan the kick one way and then pan the trigger, you know, a different way. Be kind of cool. Then we have a sample delay, so that will just delay this trigger. So now it's coming a bit after our actual kick sample is triggered. So if your samples aren't lining up, you can sample delay it or use it for your own effect. Now we have an overhead send and a room send. This is actually really cool that we can send the sound to the overhead in the room, like almost like this trigger was actually recorded live. So now you can see this coming through their overheads too. You're not going to hear if I put this on solo because the overhead has to be open as well. All right, same for our room. So that's the top section of our mixer page. You can come here to master and you can actually output these drums to different outputs and record them in your DAW onto a audio track. And of course we can set levels and whatnot. We have mute and solo for each channel. Then we have our reverse polarity there. Then we have these three buttons here, which we'll get to next. These correspond to EQ, effects, and reverb. Okay, same icon, okay. So if you want to hear the EQ, right, or the effects, or the reverb, say in the snare channel, then on the mixer, I would have to turn that on. So that actually comes through, those insert effects come through on that channel, okay? So that is our mixer page here in Druminator. Let's head over to the EQ page here in Druminator, and we'll go back to the mixer. Let me just solo just the snare. Let's go to this sample just because it's easier to hear everything. All right, back to the EQ. Maybe I want a low cut, high cut. It's not doing anything, right? Because in the mixer, we actually have to turn that EQ on. So we hear it on that channel. Back to the EQ. And by the way, I can actually double click the icon. It'll take me right to that page. Same for effects, double click, take me right to effects, reverb, and so on. So we have a nice basic EQ here. Low cut and high cut. Then for the rest of our channels, we can find our frequency and up the gain for that frequency. Or lower the gain for that frequency. Alt click to put them back to default. So if there's a boxy sound somewhere, maybe around 500, let's put this up. Now on this band, I can adjust my Q or the width. Make it wider, really tight, either one. And then I can pull that out perhaps. Or pull it in. All right, so if I want more high end on this, find my frequency here, up my gain. A nice crack there. Of course, I don't want it that high. Just a bit of a boost. All right. So that's how your EQ is going to work across every single one of your channels, including your master channel. Once you get everything done here, you might want to make some finishing touches on your master. Just make sure you turn that EQ on in the master section as well, so you actually, hear your insert effect coming through. Let's check out the effects section here in Druminator. And what do you say we do the kick channel? So we'll come to the mixer. I'm going to turn these off on the snare that we did earlier. And of course, I'll have to turn the effects on for the kick. Let me solo it. Just double click that. So here's our kick channel. All of these channels are the same. So we have a compressor, drive controls, a transient shaper here, and then our punch and our clip. So punch is, the way I kind of describe punch is it's sort of a combination of almost like compression, maybe even multi-band compression, and an EQ and a transient shaper all in one with just this one knob here. It changes, it doesn't just compress, it also changes the frequency response, okay? And then clip, you can think of that sort of as a limiter. It's not exactly the same thing, but that's how you can think of it if you don't know what that is. So compression, basic controls here. Not hearing anything right now, right? We have it turned on here, but turn the mix up and the ratio. So we can compress this. Slow or faster attack here. Not too fast. Then how long do I want that to hold before it releases? Then the gain to make up for, anything I cut off with our threshold there. Then I can mix it. I can either have 100%, none, which means we wouldn't hear anything, or maybe do something like parallel compression where we just hear like half of that affected sound. Turn the effects off. So it's just barely grabbing it there. Then we have a drive control, and for that, it's easier to hear what the drive does on the snare. Back to effects. Let's turn the mix up so we can actually hear it. Turn up the drive. Give some nice saturation to that. Of course, that works well on our kick too. Toms, even your master. But it's nice that you can actually mix in the amount you want right from here. And it sounds pretty good there. Then we have our transient design section. So attack, sustain, and then of course the mix. Let's turn the mix up so we can hear what we do. Turn the attack down. Kind of softens that attack a bit. Turn it up. Now it's really hitting harder. We're shaping that transient. Now sustain. Hear it ring out now. Pull it down. It's almost like a gate almost. Cuts it off a bit quicker. It doesn't sustain quite as long. I actually kind of like this one ringing out just a bit. But I don't want the mix that high. Then we have punch. We'll punch it up. You can see how that changes the tone. It's not just compression. Then we can clip it, which is really going to pump it up. All right. And that's the same for every single one of these channels here. So you would come back to your mixer, and you probably wouldn't do this completely in solo because you want to hear things in context, right? That's punched up too bit, and that's clipped away too much. Punch up that kick, clip it off. Put a little drive on it. So that's how that works across all of your channels. And a cool thing you can do is you can do parallel compression on your master channel. So this is hitting way too hard. Let me just turn that down. If I do the mix, I'll actually turn those off there, and I'll turn this one on here. We're going to compress it a lot. Really compress it. Get it hitting really hard. Then pull the mix down, so turn it down to nothing. We'll do some parallel compression here. That just gives it sort of another level of impact there. A little too much for me. Probably punch it up a bit, clip it just a bit. Then I come back to my EQ and do some EQing, but that is your effects page here in Druminator. Okay, on to the reverb page in Druminator, and all of these channels are exactly the same. You can put reverb on individual channels, or individual channels and the master, or just the master, whatever you want to do. And just like EQ and effects, back to mixer, let's stick with the snare because it's easiest to hear. Turn it on just by clicking the icon. Double click, take me to the reverb page. Here's our snare. Again, that's on solo. And we don't hear anything. Let's turn up the mix. We'll adjust the size of the reverb, the decay, how long it takes to decay. Decay for a long time. Not in this example because we'll have a buildup. We want to damp it some, not so dense. Just our early reflections there. Pre-delay it because I want that transient to come through before the reverb. Right? See, we get that nice hit before the reverb. Just a little bit more. There we go. Pretty good sound there. Then we have a low cut and a high cut, just to really shape the sound of our reverb. And then a basic EQ here. Take out some lows, throw in some lows, mids and highs. And you have a width control, make it really wide. And of course your mix control. This would be way too much, of course. All right, so I take that mix down. So I just have some width there, just some more depth to that snare. All right, so you can do that same thing to all of your channels here in Druminator. So that is the reverb section and how to use it here in Audio Assault's Druminator. All right, on to the mapping section. This will come into play for if you have MIDI loops that are written in, say, General MIDI, then you'll want to choose the General MIDI preset. If you're programming loops, just be sure you know what notes you're actually using, what CC numbers you're actually using, because if this is on a different preset, then your loops aren't going to work exactly the same way, because they'll be triggering different notes. Same thing if you're using, say, an electronic drum kit. All right, just program your drum brain to the correct MIDI notes here, and then your drum brain should trigger the correct notes here within Druminator. If you happen to have MIDI loops and grooves from other software, say BFD3, and I export them with a BFD3 key map, then I can choose BFD3 here, and those loops should play exactly as they were written within BFD3. Same thing for Superior and a bunch of other programs as well. Stephen Slate, Easy Drummer, Addictive Drums, and whatnot. All right, but a lot of loops that you buy or download will be general MIDI. Just pay attention to what they are. But this is your mapping section. Of course, you can save and load different presets as well here in the mapping section in Druminator. All right, so we're about done looking at how to use Druminator here. The last thing I'll mention is it does come with presets. This is the natural one, but of course we've pumped it up some with effects and EQs and reverbs. If we could turn everything off, it'll sound different. All right, don't forget your triggers that you have and your different models of kick and snare here. So if we go to a preset, you can of course take the time to set up a kit exactly how you want it, and then save that, and you will have that available next time you load up Druminator. But we have plenty of kits here to get you started. Something that you like, you can always tweak it a little bit and then save it again. Let's go to a better metal sample here. So right there, you're pretty much ready to go. Throw some heavy guitar on that. Might make a couple of adjustments, but it's pretty good how it is. I personally like my toms really high. That's a bit too high, but you get the point. So all of these presets, of course, have different settings in each of these sections here. Check out another one. Go to a rock kit. Maybe I want some trigger in that. Right. And probably my favorite, at least the favorite preset that comes with this, the metalcore kit. I'll turn the reverb off on the master. Turn down the overhead direct in this signal here. Turn it down here. Here. A little more kick in the room. Not so wide. It's pretty good right there. A little too wet on that snare. You know, for me anyway. Reverb. There we go. Don't want reverb on my kick. All right. Then I might put some compression on that master. A little more compression. Compress it up more. More gain on that. You have a great metal sound, real quick and easy there. All right, so that is an in-depth look at Druminator from Audio Assault.